I'm moving forward every day. Jesus, I just let him lead the way every second, every minute, every hour of the day. I'm moving with Jesus every day. 24/7 with Jesus every day. 24/7. With Jesus, I'm moving with Jesus every day.
Likewise, you husbands, dwell with women according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel. Yes, she is the weaker vessel, Mr. Hitman. So before you raise your hand against her, note that you don't have to prove a point by showing how strong and macho you are. She already knows that. So why are you raising your hand against that which God has created for you as the weaker vessel? Why? Well, today we will examine a little bit about the process that a man takes to become a hitman and how we can help deal with such a person. Pastor Wayne Sampson is on set today. He is the men's ministries director of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Next to him is the counseling psychologist in the person of Shirla, Lessie-John. Pastor, you being a man yourself, you being male, all male, I must add, it cannot at all be good news to hear what we have been hearing about what the male population has been doing to perpetrate specific abuse against the females of our country. What is your immediate response to that?
It is heartrending when one understands the purpose of man and maybe even the God-given potential that man carries, and it is now being misused, really. It is disappointing just the same, because there's so much more for a man than to get involved in something like that. It's a sad situation.
Shirla, you have, I'm sure, been able to work with women who have been victims of this type of abuse. How do you feel as a woman, and how do you think women feel in general when this type of abuse is being perpetrated against them?
As a woman, it is scary because you have daughters, you have sisters, you have cousins, aunts, and because of the type of injuries and so that we see, the damage that is done, it feels there's a sense of hopelessness for women if something is not done to discontinue the action. You know, and I hear a lot of young females who question whether they want to get into relationships as a result of what is happening, because they are saying that I don't know when this, suppose this happens to me. So it instills a level of fear. And we see that there's the potential to destroy relationships that could be so very meaningful, because it's very easy to just brandish all men with the same brush based on what is happening, and when you look and you see what happens to women, the damages that are done, some of them are eternal, there's nothing that can be done apparently to resurrect them from where they are.
What are some of the prevalent signs, if I were to look at a woman or if I were to be in contact with a woman, what are some of the prevalent signs that indicate something is up at home?
What you would find is that they are normally very timid, or you'll find some of them who are actually very effervescent and, look for signs like excessive makeup. Sometimes what you find is that they become withdrawn. You'll see a change in personality. They were once the life of the party, and now they are very subdued. If you invite them out, they make excuses why they can't come, because the reality is, once you're in this situation, your movements are sort of stymied. So that what you used to do, you can no longer do it. You'll find that if they are in the presence of their partner, they may look to them for approval and be very, very quiet. Would only speak if they feel that they have been given the permission to do so. And those are some of the things that you'd see. They wear clothing that's long to cover, because what is actually happening is that they are trying to cover up the signs that I am an abuser. And for some reason, women feel ashamed when they are in these situations.
Pastor, I'm sure, I take for granted that you have not been a hitman yourself, but you have had the privilege, if I must say so, of counseling or interacting with individuals who have been perpetrators. Why do men hit women? Knowing that they're already stronger than women, I mean, what force do you need to impose upon a woman to subdue her when you're already a stronger vessel? Why do men hit?
Well, first of all, I must share that these hands are not made for cause.
Thank God.
Yeah, there are better functions, certainly, that they're involved in now.
Right.
A whole lot more ecstasy can be found.
Wow.
I use that because I believe a broken man pursue the same sense of ecstasy that I'm looking for. But his understanding of life, his perspective to life, is not the same like that of mine.
Right.
For me, there is a God-given perspective, but the desire that drives us both, the man that is of God and the man that is not of God, there is that desire to have, be on top of your game. I don't use the word dominion, lest one believes it's discursive, manipulative spaces.
Right.
But certainly, every real man wants to know that he's managing his space in a given manner.
Right.
And a man, when he's broken, or maybe carrying some silent pain, he manages his pain in that inappropriate manner.
Right.
Not right for sure, but that certainly is the cause for him doing just that.
Which brings me to the point, the adage, Shirla, that hurting people hurt people. Is that true when it comes to the perpetrator?
It is true. But then, too, we do have other people, other men who hurt. For example, a man who has been the recipient or a victim of an accident or some sort of situation where he would have sustained a head injury.
Right.
There is that aspect that can propel him to become violent. But we are not talking to those factors today. Then you too, Pastor is talking about the fact that the man has been hurt. There's also the man who has been spoiled.
Okay.
All right, so that in my upbringing, I was allowed to be and to have whatever I want. Everything was at my beck and call.
Right.
So that I learned to devalue people and things because they come so easily.
Right.
And when I do not get my way, as I'm accustomed doing, then my obvious response is to become abusive. I want to hasten to add to that abuse is a learned behavior. All right, so I pattern what I have seen.
Right.
If it's not in the home, it is in the people that I would be interacting in my society. I see how men behave, how they treat with issues, and I copy the behavior because that is what I understand I have to do if I am to be the man.
Pastor, is there a place in the society, and specifically in the home, for the macho man? And I'm asking maybe a two-pronged question because I want to find out to what extent do the brothers in our society contribute to the perpetrator's behavior? And, the whole question that I am the man of this house, I must be in control. Is there a place for the macho person, understanding macho to mean somebody who must rule with some measure of aggression and sometimes even oppression in the home?
I'm not convinced that there's room for a real man there. A real man doesn't acquire his authority or his position with oppression and such the like. A real man gives service in such a meaningful way and in a consistent way that it results in the person who is receiving his action or his service has to stop and think and then act. His whole action, his interaction with people, that to my mind is a real macho guy, a guy who is consistently sharing love, consistently satisfying people's need, one where his family can rely on him. The family knows he's there, and that is there. And the family then has that sense of safety and such the like. No, that's, to my mind, that's where the real man is at. Macho, in the context that you have shared with us, certainly not at all. Where a man believes that it is required of him to be the man of the house, to be the man of the family, to be the man of the to exert his physical strength.
Right.
My father will say to me every time, the day you have to raise your hand to hit a woman is because you have just lost your manhood.
Wow.
The capacity of a man to give to a woman what she requires. And, well, my colleague is here. Women tend to duplicate whatever you give to them.
Definitely.
I don't use the word absorbers, but they take whatever you give, multiply it, and give it back to you.
Have mercy.
So if a man really wants love in a copious way, just give some.
Have mercy.
And she will take it and, am I right, Shirla?
Oh, yes, because, I mean...
That's a macho man form.
Okay.
And it is because, I mean, if you test it and you'd see. If you want a woman...
You assume I haven't tested it?
Well, forgive me for making the assumption. But
go ahead.
The thing is, a macho man, and unless you work with the definition,
Right.
the macho man is a man who can get his intimate partner to exude love, pull that love out of her without being forced to do it.
Right.
Right.
Where when I cook, I want this man to enjoy this meal.
Right.
So that I taste it, no. And she sits and she enjoys seeing you happy.
Have mercy.
Her happiness comes from seeing you happy. And because you will respond, there's that whole reciprocity. So that I love and I love back.
Come on
so that
now.
instead of you trying to gain dominance over me by beating me into submission,
Right.
let us love each other into
Mutual trust
submission.
and
Wow.
respect.
And that is when you will see a macho man, because you don't have to do very much to show that you're macho. She will tell people
Come on.
that you're macho.
Have mercy. So if he is fruitful, she will multiply.
Hey, I always say that.
Have mercy, Jesus.
I always say that when I got married to my husband, I wasn't this size, but because he feeds
I am
me.
not commenting on that at all.
Because, and that's the level of comfort that a woman, and we hear it in society.
Right, yes.
If you see a woman that's looking good or a man that's looking good, what do you hear them say?
Right.
And treating you good, but
Yeah,
that woman
of
is
course.
treating you good.
Right.
And then when you see the two parties together, you see that happiness, then you could, look at, I have my woman happy.
Right.
And that is where that macho image comes from. And you can see, Pastor Sampson seems to be in some sort of deja vu about,
You caused me to
Take
clap
your
my
time,
hands.
take your
Yes,
time.
and that's the reality.
But isn't the whole question of being macho, whether the positive side or the negative side, is birthed out of a man's desire to preserve his ego? And if it's so, how precious is a man's ego to the man?
To me, it is rather significant. And if it is managed meaningfully, the best of a man can be had. If that, however, would have been birthed in a broken space, then it is easily disturbed, and you see a ruthless man.
Have mercy.
But a man whose sense of self is all intact, and he understands who he is in whatever space he's in,
Right.
not dependent on someone to give to him for him to become, but he is because he is.
Right.
And in my given case, because I'm in God, I can give because I am who I am and not dependent on others. And so if there are lacks around, a real man doesn't back away. A real man takes responsibility for that which is around him. Where there is void, he seeks to bring some measure of creation there. Where there's chaos, he brings worth. A real man takes charge of things. And I'm using the word take charge here very guardedly, not wanting to become the authoritarian here. But one who understands his role, he's taking responsibility for the space within which he functions. And he leads with courage, just the same.
You've raised a question in my mind in terms of taking charge and whether there are women who vie to be in a space where a man takes charge in the authoritarian manner. We'll come back and discuss that a little bit. You're looking at the hitman. Yes, not me, but the men of our society who have been perpetrating all manner of evil, all manner of abuse against the weaker vessel. Stay tuned. We'll talk a little bit about what women might be doing to contribute to this scourge. Our discussion today is on the hitman, the man who loves to hit the weaker vessel. And when we took the break, we were looking at the question of the authoritarian man versus the subjected woman. And Shirla, I want to ask you, are there not cases in our society where women adore a man who is authoritarian?
And sadly, yes. These are women. We talked about the man who hurts because he is hurting, or he hurts because he was hurt.
Right.
And again, it has to do with orientation, because if a woman sees that this is what is patterned in her life, if for some reason her self-esteem is broken, maybe the absent father, all of these factors, then you'll find that she looks for these things in the man. There are some women too who are of this perception that if he doesn't do these things, then it doesn't show that he loves me.
Right.
So that behaviors of jealousy where they are insulted in public because, okay, I saw you speaking to this man, they interpret that as an indicator that he loves me. You know, some of these aspects, you will find it based on culture as well. And they too should be brought to that place where they would recognize that this is not a definition of what true love is.
Right.
Because once we love, we have to factor in my sense of worth, my whole, does he value me as a person? Does he allow me to be the individual that I am?
Right.
Am I growing in his presence? So that these women need to be brought to that place. Once they function, and we do have them, it is indicative of women who doesn't understand what love is supposed to look like.
Right. There's a school of thought, and I'm sure those looking on may be even thinking along those lines. Is there a role that women play in contributing to the hitman's behavior? Are there things that they do to provoke the man to do what he does, to say what he says?
No, I am outnumbered here, but let me just add that...
What does he mean by that, sir?
Well, I am in the middle of two men, you know. Let me just say that there's never an excuse to hit a woman.
Right.
You know, two adult people.
Yeah.
And we both agree on that. We all three agree on
Yes,
that.
you know, there's never an excuse, because you see, sometimes we need to put those disclaimers in so that people would not go away with the wrong impression.
Sure.
Now, I always say, please do not hit the man, because you cannot take a lash from the man, because sometimes in impulse, he may hit you back. And unfortunately, there are situations where the women are the aggressors. They are the instigators of the issue, but then they will lost the battle.
Right.
All right? And that is something that we as women need to be mindful of.
Right.
Do I go and agitate the situation, provoke him?
Right.
I know what the issues are, and I do things because there are some situations where they may act on impulse.
Right.
It doesn't give him the right to do it. But then sometimes we see where, had I not done what I did, it would not have escalated to this point. So that we as women, yes, we are, you know, the government is also moving in the direction of putting measures in place to protect. Not that it is just women who are the recipients of domestic violence, but the man as the victim is in the lesser
Yes.
among. But the reality is, as women, we have to understand that my actions sometimes can propel it. And if I understand that this is where his trigger is, then I need to be careful that I don't continue to press the button, because not all the time people are able to control themselves. And again, I must complete by saying it is not an excuse to do it.
Beautiful.
All right? We also, in every situation, I hold some measure of responsibility. If it's in 1%, I am responsible. So I need to evaluate how did I contribute to what happened and seek to change that as a woman.
Beautiful. Pastor, what about the brothers? Do you think that society has raised our brothers to think that taking control demands this kind of behavior, and as such, the perpetrator may have associated himself with this fraternity that would have incited this kind of behavior?
You know, we are taught about the scripting stages of a person's life, and that would have given me the understanding that yes, the group within which you were raised and cultivated, cultured,
Right.
can very well impact how you relate to situations. You know, earlier on, my colleague spoke about a woman possibly triggering off, but it also shows how broken that man is for him to be triggered off
Right.
the way he's been triggered off.
Right.
And to a very large extent, that man, again, having been, I want to use a broken, or maybe carrying some silent scream within, that's how we make things, how things are made manifest for him.
Right.
And that's what he seeks to manifest for him. You know, there's one author who says that broken man used abuse to smother his pain.
Right.
And in so doing, not only hurt himself, not only hurt others, but also hurt himself because he's prolonging or staying in a space that is absolutely negative.
Right. How can your brothers therefore help? I mean, you have raised some very critical points about, you know, what society is doing, or has done, and continues to do, I might add. How can we stop this scourge? What would you want to tell your brothers to help the particular brother who is a perpetrator?
You know, brother, and I'm talking to him directly now because I know that he wants, when he reaches out or does what he does, inappropriately as it is, he's looking for something. He wants some benefit. I'll ask him to do three things. Ask himself three questions. What do I really want? What do I want for the person that I'm now dealing with? What do I want, not from them, but for them? And then what do I want for us? If, however, I get what I want for me, it will hinder me from satisfying what I want for my person I'm supposed to care for. Then I know the space from which, my reference point, which I'm now relating to my need, is a broken space. In other words, if myself and my colleague is in a situation, and I say I care about her, I ask myself three questions. Wayne, what do you want here? We have a situation. I'm altogether upset here, but what do I really want? Secondly, what do I want for the person I ought to be caring for? If I get what I want for me, will it hinder me from getting what I want for her?
Right.
If the answer is no, it will not be, then I know my reference point to satisfying my want is a broken space.
Right.
I need help.
Right.
And that kind of self-talk is required. And many a times men talk to men, and instead of allowing them to be faced with their brokenness, to be faced with the inherited and cultivated brokenness that we go through, we cannot just facilitate the stupid talk and facilitate that which is negative. But iron, like the Bible makes it clear, like iron sharpeneth iron.
Right.
So we ought to sharpen the countenance of each other.
Beautiful.
Where my information must be shared with you, yours, and kind of build each other up.
Right.
Men hardly talk really one to another. We just, as a matter of fact, we compete one with the other instead of sharing one with the other.
Beautiful.
That space of loneliness itself keeps us in a trap. I call it a trap.
Right.
Where we have to struggle to deal with circumstances, but in our brokenness, we make a mess of things.
Beautiful.
Let iron sharpen iron.
Permit me to use your namesake, because you've just stirred my mind. In the Bible, Sampson.
Yes.
Sampson was at his weakest when he thought he was the strongest.
That's right.
I will go out and shake myself as before. And he didn't know how weak he had become. Do you think that men are afraid to be weak, or at least to admit that they are weak?
That they're weak.
There are some deficiencies we have to treat with.
That's right.
Because society teaches us to be strong.
That's right. Or demand of us to be strong.
That's right.
To a very large extent, men are consistently asked to do and not necessarily how to be.
Yes.
And it's like trying to milk a bull. You will not get it.
And you know, if I could add to that, what I have found in society too is that there's this misconception. So you see a man who is doing the feminine jobs in the house. So the man is washing, or the man is preparing a meal, and the other man is saying, what kind of mama man you are, boy, you know? And what you are actually doing is breaking down a strong man.
That's right.
Because the strong man is the man who understands that, listen, if I want to see my family comfortable, my wife happy, my wife has strength and everything sustained, then I can help.
Right.
If she's not here, am I going to sit home and wait until she comes home to prepare a meal?
Beautiful.
Or do I begin to prepare a meal?
Beautiful.
And then you have the man who would be doing these things, and you have that other man who, in fact, is the weak man.
Have mercy.
Saying, look at what this woman have you doing.
Right.
So because when he looks in the mirror, he sees something that he is not.
Right.
He attempts to bring you to the level that he is. And because our traditions, our cultures are such where we have the masculine role and the feminine role, to see a male in doing what we perceive to be the woman's thing, it is looked upon with a frown by other men.
Beautiful.
It requires, as you are saying, Pastor, a man with a good self-concept to stand up against a man like that.
Beautiful.
And I have seen situations where the men gang up against a man like that. And it requires a lot of inner strength to go against your brothers.
Have mercy.
They get on the block and they would laugh at him. So what does it take then for you to stand up as the man and say, listen, fellas, look at how my wife is happy.
Beautiful.
Look at what is happening with my family.
Beautiful.
And what we have sometimes is I say, check yours.
Right.
What is happening here? And that brings in another dynamic
Shirla,
that you would talk to.
We have a few moments again. While you're on the floor, or on the chair, as the case might be, what is it that you would want men to know about women so that they would be at least arrested from this scourge? And you have a few moments, a few to share. If you have to share something very urgent with all men, what is it that you would want all men to know about women so that at least they would think twice about
Something
becoming a hitman?
What I would want men to know is that she loves you. Because even in doing this, you would do it and she would say, okay, he would change. Because at the bottom of all of that, she loves you. But then she comes to that place where she realizes, I cannot stay here because that love is not given back to me.
Have mercy.
Recognize that you don't have to be that person for your wife, your significant other to love you.
Beautiful. Pastor
Right?
Sampson.
You'll be the person, you'll be that person that will allow your wife to leave you.
Is there hope for the perpetrator, for the hitman? Can God help? I mean, I don't want, at the risk of sounding like a cliche, can God really help a man as a hitman?
First of all, I think that is in no way a cliche. It is the standard. It is the principle that has to be internalized in order for a man to really come to the place where healing is achieved. There is no way when spirituality is denied can a man fulfill what he is designed to fulfill. I like the way one author puts it. He said, now listen, men, fish need water to survive. Plants, they need soil to survive.
Come on now.
For you to survive, you need God.
Come on now, man.
A man, for a real man to be who he ought to be, he has to appreciate that fact. He has to be in God, a consciousness of God. I'm not talking religion now. I'm talking about spirituality. His understanding of self is anchored in God.
Right.
Not his role model, is not his brokenness from whence he came or what television gave to him. Who he sees himself as and the one that he's modeling is from a spiritual perspective.
Exactly.
When that is internalized, that man is able to face challenges with courage.
Amen.
And because he's now functioning, he's taking responsibility because his father, not the broken one down here, the God, no longer a cliche, it's a reality, the God who sent him here, wants to pour his love in his heart. When God does that to a man, hey, a woman can't want a better man than that.
Come on now.
A boss doesn't want a better worker than that. When God does that in a man's life, is a reformed person, a transformed person for sure. There are several men who understand, who would have heard what we have been talking about, and they know to a large extent what they're doing is wrong. You know, the philosophies they believe in, but their standard of behavior is something else. And let me tell you something, there is no system a man or human being can come up with to move a man from his belief system to accept a piece of philosophy that his internal self, his inner self is denying. Only God alone can do that.
Beautiful. Well,
So a surrender to God is absolutely necessary.
well, I know we could say much more, and we have to wrap up now. Thank you so much, Pastor Wayne Sampson and Sister Shirla Lessie-John, for joining us today. We have been talking about the hitman. If Christ is my role model, if he's my example, guess what he did? He became a servant. He wasn't afraid to show how weak he was. But more than that, he didn't become a hitman. Instead, he took the hit for me. By his stripes, I am healed.
That's right.
So if you want to be like Christ, you don't have to respond to everything she says, my brother. You can just take the stripes, take the licking, and keep on ticking. And in so doing, you will demonstrate the value of becoming like Christ. GST 24/7. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. And don't be a hitman. Be like Pastor Sampson. Be a hug man. Hug your wife.